Chapter 1, 1980s. My boyfriend Joel received a quota to return to the city as part of the program for educated youth. On the day he left, he held me tightly and cried uncontrollably. "Zoe, don't worry. Once I return, I'll pull some strings and arrange for you to join me as soon as possible." Afterward, Joel wrote me letters every day. Everyone praised how deeply he loved me, until I fell gravely ill and returned to the city. That's when I learned the truth. Joel's quota was secured through my father's sacrifice. He had even arranged for another educated youth to impersonate me. Not only did Joel steal my quota, but he also claimed my father's death benefits and turned my family's home into his marital residence. When I confronted him, he turned the tables and accused me instead, leading to my imprisonment. I died in my cell, succumbing to illness. When I opened my eyes again, it was the day Joel received the city return quota. "Zoe, I can't live without you. Without you, my life would lose all meaning." As I opened my eyes, Joel was sobbing as if his heart was breaking. The room was packed with other educated youth, all moved by his display. Some of the women wiped away tears, turning their backs to avoid showing their emotions. Seeing that I remained unmoved, Joel grabbed my hand and slapped it against his face. "Zoe, I know you're upset about this. If I could, I'd give you this quota. I'd rather stay here and suffer than see you unhappy." Looking at his seemingly sincere face, I felt nothing but disgust. I pulled my hand away and said coldly, "Fine. Then give me the quota." The room fell silent in an instant. Joel's expression faltered. "Zoe, are you serious?" I nodded. "Of course. You said you love me, didn't you? You said you couldn't bear to see me suffering here. If I go back to the city, you'll feel better, won't you?" Joel gasped, his breath catching. Before he could come up with a rebuttal, Gloria, sitting nearby, couldn't hold back. "Zoe, that's too much. Joel worked so hard for this quota. How can you just take it away? Besides, he's already said he'll find a way to bring you back later. Can't you wait?" In my previous life, I could have stayed in the city, but because I loved Joel too much, I went against my parents' wishes and volunteered to come to the countryside with him. 2 years of hardship followed, endless toil in the fields, never knowing where the next meal would come from. Then, news came from the brigade. There were 2 quotas for returning to the city. These went to the outstanding performers, Joel and Gloria. When Joel learned this, he cried to me, saying he couldn't bear to leave me, fearing I'd hinder his future. I put on a brave face, showing no reluctance. Only after he left did I dare to cry in secret. In that life, I believed Joel's promise to bring me back and stayed in the countryside. It wasn't until I fell gravely ill and the villagers pulled money for my travel expenses that I returned to the city, only to discover that those quotas were obtained because my father had sacrificed himself to save someone important. Joel and Gloria had built their success by draining my family dry. Meanwhile, I died like a forgotten mouse in a dark prison. Thinking about it filled me with rage. I turned a cold gaze to Gloria. "This is between Joel and me. What does it have to do with you? I just can't stand you taking advantage of Joel's love to act so shamelessly." Just as Gloria was about to guilt-trip me, Amelia interrupted her. "Gloria, that's not right. If Joel loves her and is willing to do it, why are you interfering in their relationship?" Another person chimed in. "Yeah, Zoe's not wrong either. Joel's parents are gone, and he doesn't even have relatives in the city to help him. Zoe's father is a cadre. He might actually be able to pull some strings to get Joel back to the city later. Thanks to Joel's usual act of loving me like his life depended on it." Everyone joined in, confidently assuming he'd give up his quota for the sake of love. As a result, Joel's face turned ashen. Under the pressure of everyone's comments, he finally stood up and said, "I'll go to the brigade right now and see if I can transfer the quota to Zoe." Chapter 2. Not long after Joel left, Gloria also found an excuse to leave. I knew he wasn't going to talk to the brigade leader. The 2 of them were most likely sneaking off to have an affair, but I didn't have the time to catch them in the act. Rising from my chair, I prepared to head out. Amelia, my roommate, asked me where I was going. With a sorrowful expression, I told her, "I just want to take a walk." Amelia, always kind-hearted, immediately began putting on her coat to accompany me. I stopped her. "I want to be alone." "All right, But come back soon. I'll roast some sweet potatoes for you. Amelia was the eldest in our group of educated youth. She was always upright and principled, and she took good care of me. After stepping out, I went to the village entrance and paid a family 50 cents to take me to the county on their donkey cart. Before coming to the countryside, my mother had given me all the money we had. Foolishly, I spent most of it on Joel, fearing he might go hungry. Now, I had barely 10 yuan left. In my last life, when Joel left, I gave him all the money I had. Thinking about it now, I wanted to go back and slap myself twice. 2 hours later, I arrived at the best guest house in the county. I crouched near the entrance and waited. After a while, a man in a military uniform finally walked out. Just as he was about to get into his car, I sprinted toward him at full speed and blocked his path. His assistant instinctively raised a gun to my head. "Who are you?" "Uncle," I shouted urgently, turning to face the man in uniform. "I'm Zoe, Oliver's daughter." Hearing this, Victor turned around to look at me, a hint of surprise in his expression. "Young lady, how do you know about my relationship with Oliver?" "I only found out in my past life, after returning to the city, the truth behind my father's death. My father had died a hero, saving a high-ranking officer on his way to work. The officer had been in plain clothes when 3 thugs surrounded him and tried to rob him. My father rushed to his rescue, shielding him, but was fatally stabbed several times. Before he died, my father asked the officer for 2 city return quotas. Originally, he only wanted 1 for me, but knowing how blindly I cared for Joel, he requested a second one. The day after my father died, my mother took her own life out of grief. Victor, being a man who repaid his debts of gratitude, handled my parents' affairs and immediately came looking for me. At the time, I was helping another brigade. The village secretary sought out Joel, who, upon learning about it, stole my identification and had Gloria impersonate me. After returning to the city, Victor arranged jobs for Joel and Gloria and even gave them a large sum of money. I nodded through tears. "I know. Then you must also know I've already met Zoe." "Young lady, no matter where you heard my story, please don't do something as shameless as impersonating someone else." Victor, with his military demeanor, straightened his face. The sternness in his expression was enough to make anyone tremble. "Uncle, I'm not lying." I pulled out letters my parents had sent me from my bag. "I am Oliver's daughter." After reading the evidence, Victor frowned deeply. "What's going on here?" Between sobs, I explained everything, the entire story from start to finish. Victor's anger erupted instantly. "Unbelievable! They dared to pull off a bait-and-switch right under my nose." "Assistant, go get that kid for me right now." "No, Uncle." I stopped him. "I'll handle Joel myself. The reason I came to you is to ask for a different favor." I still remembered how, in my previous life, when I confronted Joel, I brought my classmates and everyone who knew me to testify to my identity, but Joel had already bought them off while he was still in the countryside. That's how I ended up in prison. Victor could fix my identity, but if Joel, like before, accused me first, I would still be the one thrown in jail. Victor asked, "What do you want? To return to the city?" Looking him straight in the eye, I dropped to my knees. "Uncle, please revoke the city return quota and send me to join the military instead." Chapter 3. Back then, my father had wanted me to enlist in the military, but I gave up the opportunity for Joel. Now that my father is gone, I can't let him down again. After hearing my story, Victor was deeply moved. He immediately instructed his staff to file paperwork with the county's educated youth office to suspend Joel's city return. He told me that enlisting in the military required a different set of procedures and asked me to stay here and wait patiently. Looking at Victor's expression, I could tell he still had doubts about my identity. His words were likely to keep me calm. When I left the guest house, my heart remained heavy. How could I get Victor to truly believe me? I rode the donkey cart back to the village. Just as I got off, I heard noises behind a stack of firewood. Curious, I approached quietly, only to hear Joel and Gloria. The 2 of them were wrapped in a heated embrace, kissing passionately. Gloria spoke angrily. "Why should Zoe get your city return quota?" Joel coaxed her. "Even if she wants it, I won't give it to her." "That idiot, just make up an excuse." And she'll believe it. She still has a few dozen yuan left. Once I get my hands on that, we'll head to the county to file our paperwork. Gloria huffed. She likes you so much. And you treat her like this. You won't treat me the same way in the future, will you? Joel gave her a kiss and said, "What are you talking about? I'm completely sincere with you." Every word of their conversation reached my ears, making me sick to my stomach. Despite my disgust, a plan to prove myself came to mind. I didn't stay to listen any longer. I walked back to the educated youth dormitory on foot. As soon as I entered, I collapsed onto the table, sobbing uncontrollably. Amelia hurried over and asked, "What happened, Zoe? Why are you crying so much?" Struggling to catch my breath, I told her, "Joel cheated on me." Amelia looked at me in shock. "What? How could that be?" "It's true, he's with Gloria." I recounted everything I'd seen behind the firewood stack. Amelia's eyes widened in disbelief. "Unbelievable. Wait here, I'll make sure you get justice." When Joel returned, he was startled to find the entire dormitory full of people waiting for him. Instinctively, he straightened his clothes and forced an awkward smile. "Why is everyone still awake?" Then he saw my swollen, tear-streaked face. He immediately walked over with a look of concern. "Zoe, why are you crying like this? Who bullied you?" Before he could touch me, a male dorm mate grabbed him by the collar and asked with a dark expression, "Joel, what were you doing with Gloria?" Joel's face went pale. "What? Nothing. There's nothing between me and Gloria." "You're still denying it? I saw the two of you kissing," I shouted, tears streaming down my face again. "Joel, I came to this awful place for you, and you go and do this behind my back?" Meanwhile, Gloria, who had returned later, was blocked outside by Amelia. Amelia cornered her and interrogated her about stealing my boyfriend. I cried louder. "Joel, if you don't like me, you could have just told me and broken up. Why did you have to use me for my money and act like you cared?" The educated youth who had once supported our relationship were instantly outraged. Joel shouted, "This is all a misunderstanding. There's nothing going on between me and Gloria. We were just talking about city return quotas." No matter how much Joel and Gloria tried to explain, they were locked up by the group, who declared that they would report them to the county office the next day. But before we could bring them to the authorities, the next morning, the person assigned to watch them ran to tell Amelia and me, "Joel and Gloria are gone." I panicked immediately, grabbing Amelia's arm and crying, "Sister, what do we do now?" Amelia remained calm. "They must have gone to the county youth office to process their return papers." "Don't worry, Zoe. If we can't solve this today, they won't be able to leave." Under Amelia's leadership, we borrowed 2 donkey carts from the villagers and headed to the county youth office in force. Sure enough, Joel and Gloria had gone to the county to process their return documents. In the office, Joel and Gloria handed over their stamped documents and identification. "Comrade, I'm Joel, and she's Zoe. We're here to process our city return paperwork," Joel announced confidently. The staff looked at the two of them and frowned. "Your city return documents have been voided." "What?" Joel exclaimed, visibly agitated. "How could they be voided?" "I don't know. We received notice from higher-ups yesterday to cancel both of your city return quotas," the staff member replied calmly. Hearing this, Joel looked like his world had collapsed. However, he quickly collected himself and took Gloria to find Victor. At the entrance of the guest house, they ran into Victor. "Uncle," Joel called out, "we went to the youth office to process our city return paperwork, but they told us it was voided." "What's going on?" Victor responded calmly. "Yesterday, a young lady came to me claiming to be Oliver's daughter. She presented letters as evidence. Since your identities are now in question, I can't allow you two to return to the city." "Uncle, I am Zoe," Joel insisted. "That girl must be Gloria. We've had personal conflicts, and she's pretending to be me. I have all the identification and photos of my father to prove it." Hearing this, Gloria immediately produced my identification documents. The photos on the documents were from years ago, and since Gloria and I shared a slight resemblance, it was difficult to tell who was who. Victor frowned, scrutinizing the documents, clearly trying to make sense of the situation. Just then, A loud shout rang out from the street. Joel, Gloria, we finally found you too. They turned around, only to see the entire group of educated youth storming toward them. Chapter 4. Seeing so many people, Joel and Gloria's faces turned pale. Joel sneaked a glance at Victor. Noticing his expression had also changed. Without hesitation, Joel pulled Gloria down with him to kneel. Uncle, please help us. These people heard we're going back to the city and got jealous. So they deliberately locked us up. Joel pleaded. Gloria chimed in. Yes, Uncle, they've never liked us. Especially that woman. She's always been jealous of my relationship with Joel and keeps trying to come between us. Could it be that she impersonated me? As expected. Victor frowned deeply after hearing this and was about to instruct his assistant to investigate the matter further. But Amelia's loud voice interrupted. Gloria, you're the one twisting the truth. You're the one who's impersonating Zoe. What Joel and Gloria didn't know was that we had come here straight from the Bureau for Educated Youth. When we arrived at the Bureau, we saw Joel and Gloria leaving the office, looking dejected, curious. Amelia went inside to ask the staff what had happened. She learned that their return to city paperwork had been put on hold. The staff explained that the two names listed for returning to the city were Joel and Zoe, and the return permits weren't issued because of their good performance but because someone important had specifically requested it. After digging a bit deeper, it became clear to everyone my father had sacrificed his life to save others, earning these two return permits. And yet, Joel, that scumbag, had tried to claim them for himself. The news spread like wildfire through the crowd. Our group of educated youth, all burning with righteous anger, immediately decided to help me reclaim the permit that rightfully belonged to me. After Amelia's outburst, the rest of the group surrounded Victor, eagerly explaining the truth. Sir, you can't believe a word these two are saying. This man, Joel, is an expert at putting on an act. He always pretends to love Zoe in front of everyone, but behind her back, he's messing around with this woman. That's Gloria, by the way. One of them said. That's right. Sir, don't be fooled by them. We almost got tricked ourselves. Someone added. Everyone started speaking up at once, their voices overlapping. Joel, drenched in sweat, nervously pointed at Gloria and said, Uncle, don't listen to them. She is Zoe. We even have proof. These people are just jealous of us. If she's really Zoe, then where's her proof of identity? Bah! Amelia spat directly in his face. All that so-called proof you have, you stole from Zoe, and now you're trying to turn the tables? You're shameless. The scene became so chaotic that it caught the attention of the local police. But when the officers saw Victor, they hesitated and didn't dare to intervene. Eventually, Victor, with a dark expression, waved his hand and ordered all of us to be taken to the police station. At the station, Joel and Gloria remained completely unfazed. They insisted that Gloria was Zoe and accused us of lying. Joel even suggested calling the team leader to verify their claim. Amelia pointed at Joel, furious. That team leader must have taken your bribes. Otherwise, why would he tell us the permit was for Gloria? Then Amelia seemed to remember something and raised her hand. Turning to Victor, Sir, I know someone who can prove that Gloria is an imposter. We grew up as neighbors, and she worked in the next village over. If you call her here, the truth will come out. Hearing that, I couldn't help but admire Amelia's logic. It might not be easy to prove that I'm me, but proving that Gloria is Gloria? That's much simpler. After all, she always bragged about her family having many children, and how her sister was jealous of her. Before long, someone fetched Gloria's younger sister. When she heard that her sister was trying to steal someone else's permit to return to the city, she came over immediately, pointing at Gloria. She said, That's right, this is my sister. Gloria broke down on the spot. You're crazy. I'm not Gloria. You must have planned this with them. Sis, stop lying. I even brought our family photo. Gloria's sister said smugly. We all went to the countryside for our brother's sake. But don't think you can betray us and go back on your own. After verifying everything, Victor finally believed that I was Zoe. The big man's eyes reddened as he grasped my hand and apologized. Zoe, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have doubted you. Your father saved my life, and I almost let him down. You want to join the military, right? Today, you're coming back to the city with me, and I promise you'll get into the army. Chapter 5. I said to him, Uncle, I don't blame you. If there's anyone to blame, it's the bad people in the world. But I do have a question. When you promised my father 2 permits to return to the city, does that promise still hold? Victor, already feeling guilty toward me, immediately nodded and said, Of course, it still holds. Hearing those words, no one was more excited than Joel. He ran over, grabbed my hand, and said, Zoe, I knew you wouldn't leave me behind. This was all my fault. Gloria, that wretched woman, was the one who manipulated me. The truth is, I've always loved you the most. Don't worry. Once we return to the city, I'll marry you. He seemed to transform back into that boy who once looked at me with nothing but love. Marrying Joel had always been my dream. In my previous life, I clung to that hope just to keep going. But when I finally found Joel, I discovered that not only had he married Gloria, but he had also turned my parents' house into their marital home. At the time, it felt as if someone had stabbed me directly in the chest. Even breathing became painful. Looking into those expectant eyes now, I pulled my hand away and let out a cold laugh. Who said I'm taking you back to the city? I turned to Amelia and asked, Sis, would you like to go back to the city with me? Amelia froze for a few seconds, unable to hide the joy spreading across her face. Before she could reply, Joel dropped to his knees, clutching my leg and wailing, No, Zoe, please take me with you. I can't stay here anymore. I promise I'll treat you well from now on. You can't abandon me. 2 people, annoyed by his behavior, came over and dragged him away. You've done so many disgusting things, and now you expect someone to take you with them? Where's your shame? Zoe can take whoever she wants. Stop embarrassing yourself. 2 hours later, Amelia and I climbed into Victor's car with our luggage. Although Gloria had impersonated me, she hadn't caused any real harm in the end. She and Joel would only be locked up for a few days before being released. But even after they were released, life wouldn't be easy for them. After Amelia and I left, the remaining educated youth still didn't like either of them. After all, both Joel and Gloria were lazy and always tried to avoid work. Back then, I had been brainwashed by Joel, convinced that his hands were made for holding a pen, so I often did his share of the farm work. Now that I was gone, he would have to do it himself. Thinking about that brought me a sense of satisfaction. The first thing I did after returning to the city was visit my parents. At their graves, I apologized to both of them and promised that I would never love Joel again. Victor told me that I'd have to wait until the next round of military recruitment to officially enlist. In the meantime, I could take care of anything I wanted to. After thinking it over, I decided to collect the compensation payment from my father's workplace. When I arrived at his workplace and explained my purpose, the office staff said, Your father's compensation has already been collected. I was stunned. Who collected it? My father's hometown was thousands of miles away, and none of our relatives even knew about his sacrifice. The staff member checked the records and replied, His daughter. I frowned slightly. How could that be? I said, I'm Oliver's daughter. You must have mistaken me for someone else. The staff member adjusted his glasses and asked, Do you have proof? I was at a loss for words, suddenly remembering that when I returned from the countryside, I hadn't brought my identification documents with me. It was very likely that Joel and Gloria were behind this. With no other options, I went to find Amelia. After hearing what happened, Amelia was furious and immediately sent a telegram to the educated youth team. The reply came quickly. They said that Joel and Gloria had been staying in the village, but a few days ago, they disappeared into the back hills for 2 days and returned behaving unusually diligent. Apart from that, they informed us that Joel and Gloria were about to return to the city because they had received university admission letters. Looking at the letter, Amelia and I exchanged a knowing look. As expected, it was those 2 who had come back to claim my father's compensation. I hadn't expected them to be so bold. Then Amelia thought of something else. How did Gloria get into university? She didn't even take the entrance exam. I gasped. Are you serious? Chapter 6. Really? Amelia said. She used to share a room with Gloria. On the day of the entrance exam, Gloria stayed in the room the whole time. When I asked her about it, she said she wasn't going to pass anyway, and she only registered to get a couple of extra days off. So, among us educated youth, only Joel and I actually took the exam. Since the college entrance exams were reinstated, Joel had always wanted to use them to change his fate. Unfortunately, he had taken the test several times and never passed. This year, I took it alongside him, and I found the questions relatively easy. Amelia and I fell silent for a moment, the same thought crossing both our minds. Amelia asked, "Could Gloria's admission letter actually be yours?" To find out for sure, we needed to investigate. Joel and I had applied to the same university, so the next day, Amelia and I went to the admissions office. After checking, they confirmed that my name was indeed on the list of new students. I was certain if Gloria was bold enough to impersonate me to claim my father's compensation, she would undoubtedly show up at the university pretending to be me as well. So, on the first day of orientation, I was the first to register and the first to withdraw my enrollment. Since there was only one bus from the countryside to the city in the afternoon, Amelia and I waited for a long time. Finally, just before sunset, we spotted Joel and Gloria approaching. Perhaps too excited, they didn't notice us at all. Joel registered first. After he was done, Gloria handed over my identification, saying, "I'm Zoe. I'm here to register as well." The staff glanced at the document and immediately handed it back. "This ID is fake, isn't it? Zoe has already withdrawn from the university." Gloria froze. But she didn't look guilty at all. "That's impossible. There must be some misunderstanding. Comrade, please take another look. My admission letter is stamped and authentic. Someone else must have taken my place." "Who could possibly take your place? Gloria?" That was when Amelia and I stepped out. The moment they saw me, Joel and Gloria were stunned. Joel, in particular, pointed at me and said, "What are you doing here? Weren't you supposed to join the army?" I sneered. "I told Uncle I'd join a bit later." Then I turned to Gloria. "Gloria, you really have no shame, do you? You love stealing other people's identities so much. Taking my father's compensation wasn't enough for you. Now you're trying to take my place at university too." Gloria's face turned an ugly mix of red and white, unable to come up with a response. Joel, however, quickly regained his composure. "What compensation? What impersonation to get into university? We know nothing about that. We have proper identification and admission letters. And that's what counts. What you say doesn't matter." He slapped my admission letter onto the table. "If you can't provide evidence that this person is Zoe, then I'll report you for illegally processing a withdrawal for a student." Seeing Joel's confidence, Gloria straightened her back as well. After all, she had the documents to prove her identity. In this era, people believed in documents, not faces. The two of them managed to intimidate the staff momentarily, prompting the admissions office director to step in. After hearing the whole story, the director turned to Joel and said, "Hand me that admission letter for a closer look." Joel handed it over with a smug expression. This was written personally by the university principal. It even has his private seal. Just as he thought victory was in his grasp, the admissions office director, in full view of everyone, tore the letter in half. Joel's face immediately darkened. "What are you doing? Do you realize this is illegal? I'll report you." "Report us?" the director scoffed, then signaled for a few security guards to approach. "You can explain your impersonation to the police." Zoe's withdrawal was personally handled by Commander Victor. Who brought her here? Commander Victor himself is her admission letter. Chapter 7. At that, Joel instantly cowered. He quickly turned to me, pleading, "Zoe, please, let me explain. It's not what you think. This was all Gloria's doing. She was the one who impersonated you. It has nothing to do with me. Please don't send me to the police. I worked so hard to get into university, and I finally escaped that miserable place." His words infuriated Gloria. She started yelling, "Joel, what do you mean by that? Are you trying to pin everything on me now? These were all your ideas. You were the one who wanted to sleep with me in the first place, perhaps out of fear of getting arrested." The two of them began turning on each other, hurling accusations and begging for my forgiveness. I watched them calmly and said, Forgiving you isn't impossible, but the compensation money you took, the money my father earned with his life, that has to come back to me." Gloria immediately understood my implication and pulled cash out of her bag. "Here. Take it. I didn't spend a penny. It's all here." Not to be outdone, Joel also produced the remaining half of the money. "Zoe, I didn't touch this money either, for the sake of what we once had. Please forgive me." I took the money and carefully counted it. Then I smiled slightly. "All right. I'll forgive you for impersonating me to claim my father's compensation." They barely had a second to rejoice before I added, "But I can't forgive you for stealing my admission letter and trying to take my place at university." Security, please make sure they are handed over to the police. At my words, their faces crumpled as if the sky had fallen. They erupted into curses, hurling insults at me without restraint. It didn't matter. The money was already back in my hands, and I couldn't care less about how horrible their insults were. After being sent to the police station, Joel and Gloria started blaming each other. Joel tried to push all the blame onto Gloria, claiming he had no knowledge of anything. Gloria, however, was detained for returning to the city without authorization and for impersonating me. While Joel was released, he thought being released meant he was in the clear. But when the university heard about his actions, they immediately expelled him and announced that he would never be admitted again. What happened to Joel after that had nothing to do with me. A week later, I officially entered the military camp. At the end of the year, the government introduced a new policy allowing all educated youth who had been sent to the countryside to return to the city. Many friends wrote letters to me with the good news. As I read them, I couldn't help but wonder, would Gloria, sitting in prison, regret her decisions? If she had just waited another 6 months, she could have returned legitimately. But instead, she let Joel manipulate her, and it ruined her entire life. I trained diligently in the military and passed the entrance exam for the military academy the following year. From there, I worked my way up and eventually became a successful diplomat. Before I was set to take up a post in another country, Amelia reached out to me, saying our old group of educated youth friends wanted to throw me a farewell gathering. I gladly attended. Everyone had done well for themselves. Amelia had taken the college entrance exam the year after returning and got into a good university, eventually becoming an outstanding high school teacher. Others had also found success. Some became business owners, others actors. During dinner, someone mentioned that Gloria had been released from prison. They said she had changed drastically over the years. After being released, she seemed mentally unstable and was sent back to the countryside by her family, where she married an older man with a low IQ. Of all of us, Gloria had been the most desperate to escape the rural life. Yet, in the end, she returned to the very place she had fought so hard to leave. Talking about Gloria naturally brought up Joel. After that year, no one ever heard from Joel again. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. After the meal, my assistant arrived to pick me up. As everyone walked me to the car, we found a beggar leaning against the car door. My assistant approached him and asked him to move, but the beggar stood up and began whining. "What do you mean I'm blocking your car? It's clearly your car that hit me." When he saw our group, however, his demeanor shifted. In an instant, he became agitated and ran off, disappearing without a trace. But no matter how fast he ran, everyone recognized him. Amelia's jaw dropped. That was Joel, wasn't it? How did he end up like this? After her comment, everyone's eyes turned to me. After all, my feelings for Joel had once bordered on obsession. Even after all the harm he caused me, they still thought I might feel pity for the Joel they just saw. To everyone's surprise, I acted as though I didn't recognize him. Instead, I hugged each of them one by one and said my goodbyes. Truthfully, seeing Joel like that did make me feel a little sentimental. I still remembered the first time I saw him. He was wearing a faded gray shirt, and every word he spoke exuded sophistication. Even after we were sent to the countryside, he was still the most refined and handsome of us all. Everyone believed he would be the one to achieve the most. But somewhere along the way, his feelings for me soured. Was it the endless wind on the yellow plateau that turned someone once as bright as the moon into this? I supposed I'd never find the answer, but I knew one thing for certain: I would never feel anything for him again. When I hugged Amelia, she whispered in my ear, "I was so afraid you'd chase after him." I squinted and smiled. Not a chance. Amelia sighed in relief and wished me well. Zoe, you're the most accomplished among us. I hope you soar higher and higher and never look back. And thank you for taking me with you back then. I replied. I will, and you're welcome.